welcome to livealittlehigher.com. This week we learn Parashah Mishpatim, and this Parashah Mishpatim comes after the Parashah of Yitro, which the Jewish people received the commandments at Mount Sinai. And it was actually 10 commandments, but in reality, from those commandments come the 613 mitzvot that we know. So in this parasha, we have 53 of these mitzvot, in which the parasha's name, Mishpatim, is telling us that it's mitzvahs that are logical, they're laws, and they're judgments, and these are the type of mitzvot that even a decent society would come up with. Like, you would think, like, God doesn't need to tell us not to kill. Like, any decent human being would understand that killing is something that you shouldn't do, or you should not steal. Any decent human being knows that stealing is something that goes against the law. So this Parashah Mishpatim actually has 53 of these mitzvot that are logical laws that any intelligent person, discerning person can come to understand and can come up to keep them without being told to do so. But also in this parasha, we have also at least one supra-rational decree. There's also supra-rational decrees, which are called hukim, which is things that Hashem commands us to do, that there's no logic for them, that there's no rationale. Once you do them, you can experience the truth behind them, but in reality, no person would come up with this on their own. Like, for example, in this parasha, the last mitzvah that is given is a mitzvah of not mixing milk and meat together and not cooking it together. So from this mitzvah, it's a mitzvah that many people eat hamburgers with cheese, or people eat veal parmigiana, or people eat meat and after a minute they're drinking a coffee with milk. But here Hashem is giving us this law that Jewish people cannot mix the meat and the milk. And why, we really don't know why. He doesn't say why. He just says in the Torah, do not cook a kid in its mother's milk. So people can come to rationalize the mitzvot, the hukim, and say, okay, it's inhumane to cook the kid in the mother's milk, it's inhumane. Another person would come and say, it's mixing life and death, the milk is a life, comes from a live animal, the meat comes from a dead animal, so you don't mix those together. And we can come to rationalize it, but in reality, they're supra-rational, they're beyond our comprehension, and they're not something that we really do because we understand them. We do them because this is Hashem's will. So the third category of mitzvot are called eidot, and this type of mitzvot is testimonial. And these are mitzvot that you would say they are in the middle ground between the hukim and the mishpatim, and these ones commemorate or represent something of the commandments. Like, for example, putting on tefillin it's eidot. When we rest on Shabbat, it's eidot. When we eat matzah on Passover, it's eidot. These are laws which we would not have devised on our own. We would never come and do them by ourselves. Certainly not in the exact manner in which the Torah commands it. Nevertheless, we do them because they make sense to us, and they have a significance. They touch a part of ourselves. Like, if you go to India, you're gonna have the biggest Seder in the world. 3,000 backpackers come to a Seder. So you would think, okay, all these Jewish kids that are backpacking in India, that are trying to look for themselves, suddenly they end up in a Chabad house in India, 3,000 of them, and they're celebrating Pesach. So this is something that touches the essence of a Jew. It's part of our DNA. It's part of who we are. And we don't even question them. Yeah, Pesach. You don't eat matzah for 8 days. You don't eat matzah for 8 days. Like, we don't even question. So yet, Yet each of these terms, Mishpatim, Hukim, and Eidot, they're also used in the Torah as a synonym for mitzvah. We know that the word mitzvah comes from the word tzva, which means connection. And actually, these mitzvot that Hashem gives us are the way in which we can connect to God. This is the way He designed the world, this is the way He made the world, and this is the way in which we are able to access Hashem in our lives. The Jewish people are commanded to keep 613 mitzvot. There are 7 others that are rabbinical, that are obligatory too. And then you have the 7 Noahide laws, which are the 7 mitzvot that all non-Jews are commanded to keep. If they keep these 7 laws, they're very righteous people. They become very righteous people. So there's commandments that we have to keep, not because they're logical. Obviously, there's some that make sense. Like if you steal, you have to repay what you stole. If you kill, there's also a punishment for that. If it was intentional, if it was not intentional. All these laws that create a civil, decent society are things that make sense, but nevertheless, we don't keep them because they're logical, and this is what this is telling us, and it's teaching us, is that the reason, the intention of keeping mitzvot, it's not because they're logical and they make sense. We keep them because this is how Hashem created the world to be. This is when you do a mitzvah, either it's a mishpatim from the logical, legal aspect, or you're doing a mitzvah that is supra-rational, that you can't even explain, or you're doing something that is to commemorate something from the Torah. Either way, the intention before doing these mitzvot, it's really because this is what Hashem wills for the world. This is His desire. And if they're logical, great. But if they're not, this is His desire too. So we see that this synonym for mitzvah is a reference to all commandments of the Torah. And a case in point is that the Torah section of Mishpatim, which opens with God's words to Moshe, and these are the mishpatim that you shall set before them. The 53 mitzvot that follow are indeed primarily logical laws. And at the end, you have some testimonial laws, and you will have the last mitzvah that is presented in this portion is the one that is a hok, the one I said before, against mixing milk and meat. So the Hasidic teaching, and from the teachings of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, it explains that every mitzvah is in essence a supra-rational hok. Even if you think that there's logic and it makes sense and you understand it, the essence of the mitzvah is not understandable. It's not understandable because we're finite beings and Hashem is infinite. And so God created the human mind and the logic by which it operates. So if it's logical to you, it's because your mind operates in this fashion. He created a world in which killing is not good. He decreed that killing is bad, and we are, in our mind, created in a way in which we see that killing is wrong. So this is obviously then it would be nothing less than ridiculous to assume that God desires something because it's logical. Rather, the reverse is true. Something is logical because Hashem desires it to be logical. He desired that such a thing should be logical. It's not that He creates logical laws. He decides that this law is logical. So in other words, the reason the commandment do not kill is logical to us is that God desired a world in which life is sacred. For Hashem, the sanctity of life is very important. And He molded our minds in accordance with this logic. He molded us to really to have a vision of this reality and to understand that life is sacrosanct. But, however, do not kill is more logical than the mitzvah of parad umah. For example, in essence, There's a mitzvah called the mitzvah of paraduma, which is the mitzvah of the red heifer, which we will see in the future in another parasha. This mitzvah is a commandment that is supra-rational, in which in the times of the temple, if a person went and buried a dead person, he would become impure. And to be able to go back into the temple, into the Mishkan or the Beit HaMikdash, he had to become pure again. And the way in which he would become pure again after being in contact with a corpse was that the Kohen Gadol had to find this red heifer. It was a cow that was completely red, and he would obviously sacrifice it, and he would burn it till it became ashes, and he would get these ashes and mix them with the water of the temple, and then he would sprinkle this water on that person, and the person would become pure, and the person that did the ashes and the whole procedure would become impure. So this is for another parasha, but I'm trying to explain to you how illogical this mitzvah is, how it really doesn't make any sense. It sounds like voodoo, but in reality, this mitzvah of do not kill that would be so logical to us, it's just an external garment behind which lies the mitzvah essential nature as the supra-rational will of God. So in essence, do not kill is a supra-rational mitzvah as the red heifer. It's the same, just that our minds were created to understand the logic behind this one, and our minds are not created to understand the logic behind the other one. So in the words of the Tanya, of the Alter Rebbe, Rabbi Shneur Salman of Liadi, he says, the rationales of the mitzvot have not been revealed, for they are beyond reason and understanding. Also, in those instances in which there has been revealed and explained a certain reason, which is apparently comprehensible to us, this is not the ultimate reason, for within it is contained an inner sublime wisdom that is beyond reason and understanding. So what he's saying is, like, you think you got it, you think you understand it, to a certain level you do. But there's layers and layers and layers and layers of reason behind that mitzvah that you could never come to understand, because there's as much as you can know. There's as much as your finite mind is able to grasp. And so on the other hand, even the most irrational decree has its rational elements that can be analyzed by the human mind and appreciated by it as a lesson in life. As Maimonides writes, although all the hukim of the Torah are supra-rational decrees, it is fitting to contemplate them, and whatever can be explained should be explained. So whatever can be understood, whatever a person can derive from a certain commandment, something they can grasp onto and be in a certain way, something that would bring some clarity to the mind of a person, then you should do it. You should say it. For example, Rashi explains that because the child of the red heifer was the one that made the Jewish people sin in the desert with the golden calf, then the mother is cleaning after the sin of this. It's a tikkun. It's like a rectification. So yes, there's things that you can come to. You think you understand, and it's okay that you're there. And you should try to explain what is explainable, but that we can come to grasp the whole totality of why Hashem does the things He does, and why He expects us to live in a certain way, and why this is His desire in this world, we have no idea. We have no idea. So thus every mitzvah, whether categorized as a hok or as a mishpat, is basically a supra-rational decree, which can nevertheless be experienced as an illuminating guide to life. And as I said last week, I had a whole shiur about the or and the keli, the light and the vessel, and that Hashem gives us the opportunity to be the vessels of His light in this world, and also to understand that the mitzvah is the opportunity that Hashem is giving you to be able to earn in this world. There's a concept in Kabbalah that says that Hashem doesn't want to give us bread of shame. What is bread of shame? He doesn't want to give us things for free. You know, there's nothing worse for a person, really psyche, to feel that he can't earn anything, that he's good for nothing, that he's not able to do anything in this world. That's the worst thing that can happen to a human being, when he feels that he's not useful. So Hashem doesn't want to give us this. He doesn't give us a free ride in this world. He doesn't give us a house and a car and food and money and a family and good health out of his goodness of his heart. He gives it to us regardless whatever we do, but he gives us the opportunity to do things so we can feel that we're doing something to have what we have, that we can have a feeling of self-love, of self-assurance, that we're not here and we're just these people that are just takers. We can also be givers. So this is the biggest gift Hashem can give us, is the ability to be givers. And when we're doing mitzvot, this is what we're doing. We're becoming givers. We're not only takers. So he says that every mitzvah is an act of submission to the divine will, an act that recognizes that our finite minds cannot fathom the axioms that are the basis of our reality, and must ultimately accept them on faith from their divine conceiver. At the same time, every mitzvah is a rational act in the sense that it relates to our rational selves and aids us to achieve a better understanding of our nature and our purpose in life. So the fulfillment of mitzvot, what it does is it gives us a purpose, gives us a mission. It's a mission statement. And so the only difference between the Hukim and the Mishpatim is which of these two elements dominates. The question is, which one is dominating? The Hok emphasizes on the supra-rational and our commitment to God, regardless if we understand it or not. You don't mix meat and milk. And yes, I remember when I became kosher, one of the hardest things to do was not to have my cappuccino after my lunch. And I ate a piece of meat and I was craving my cappuccino. This was 20-something years ago. There was no soy milk, there was no almond milk, there was no oat milk. You didn't have an option. If you ate milk, you had to wait 6 hours to have your cappuccino. So what did I do? I didn't eat meat because I always wanted my cappuccino. But what he's saying here is that even if it's supra-rational, even if you don't understand it, the Jew is gonna do it because this is his ticket to God. This is the way that he connects to God. He knows that this is the way he's gonna connect to him. And so we see that while the Mishpatim stresses the function of the mitzvot as educators and enlighteners of human life. So whatever it can be rationalized and understood, it gives you a sense of, okay, I'm on a mission, I have a purpose, I'm doing something useful, I'm doing something for God, I'm doing something that is commanded of me. When you do things that you don't understand why, that, okay, Hashem has a plan, then you're tapping to a higher level of faith in which you're connecting to that supra-rational part of yourself that says, okay, I don't get it, but I'm doing for Hashem. I'm doing what he's asking me to do, even if I don't understand it. I'm doing for him because I believe in him. And this is the ultimate transcendence. So in this parasha, there's an example of law which states, if a Jew is forced to either transgress any of the mitzvot commanded by the Torah or else be killed, he should transgress rather than be killed. So, for example, if they tell you, if you don't eat that piece of pork, we're gonna behead you, then you're obliged to eat the piece of pork, because your life is more important than you eating the piece of pork. But it's also written that for regard the mitzvot it is written, you shall keep my hukim and mishpatim, which man should do and live by them. We should do them and live by them. And so live by them and not die by them. When does then above apply? In regard to all mitzvot, except for the prohibitions against idolatry, sexual sins, certain sexual sins, and murder. And so these three if, for example, you're a married woman and they kidnap you and they tell you either you go to bed with this man or you're gonna be killed, you better be killed. You have to get killed. If they tell you either you kill this person or we're gonna kill you, you have to get killed. Or if they tell you if you don't bow to this God, you're gonna be killed, then you have to allow them to be killed. Because it says regarding these three transgressions, if a person is told to either commit one of them or else be killed, he should be killed rather than transgress. This is from the Mishneh Torah. And why this distinction between these mitzvot? Like, for example, these three cardinal sins, if you better get killed before you do them. It is because the mitzvot exist to live rather than for die. Like, a Jew is all for life. Everything, you have to give up everything to live. You can desecrate Shabbat to save a life because you know that person can have many more Shabbats. So you're allowed to get on a car on Shabbat, drag the person to the hospital and save a life on Shabbat. It's part of the law of Shabbat. If you go to the Shulchan Aruch and you learn the laws of Shabbat, it says if a person needs an emergency medical, go to the hospital, this is a law of Shabbat that you're allowed to get on a car and drive to the hospital. So on the other hand, if a person had to give his life rather than violate the divine will, then this should apply to all mitzvot. You would say, okay, why don't we do like the three last ones, the three cardinal sins that you cannot commit them, you have to give your life instead of doing it. So what is it saying here? So indeed the mitzvah is both superior to human existence and integral to it, and as a divine decree dictated solely by the infinite and absolute will of God, it is greater than life, greater certainly than life, finite and equivocal manifestation in a physical body. On the other hand, as an illuminator, enhancer, and sanctifier of life, the mitzvah is something that comes to serve life, not to supersede it. So, yes, we have different laws for different things, and when a person is confronted with a choice to either violate a mitzvah or die, then you have the two phases of the mitzvah are brought into conflict with each other. And the question then is, which element of the mitzvah dominates? The question is, what element of this mitzvah is dominating? Which should give way before the other? Is life more important or is the mitzvah more important? So in most cases, life is more important. In 90% of the time, life is more important. And then in a very small percentage, then it's more important to give your life. And so it says, but there are certain mitzvot in which the divine decree aspects dominates. What is most significant is that God's commanded and man must obey, regardless of the consequences to man's ephemeral existence as a physical being. So what he's saying here is that what's important in life is that you fulfill Hashem's desire. This is it. You have to learn the law. When you learn the law, you're not going to add to it. You're not going to take away from it. You learn the law, and you go with the law. And when you follow the law and you follow Hashem's directives, then what you're doing is that you're making His will your will. And as it says, when you make Hashem's will your will, He will make your will His will. And so the biblical commandments are 613 mitzvot, explicitly of implicitly contained in the 5 books of Moses. And the rabbinical commandments are the laws instituted by the sages throughout the generation. For example, praying 3 times a day is something that was instituted by the rabbis. Reciting Kaddish after a dead person is something that was instituted by the rabbis. Making blessings before eating, this was instituted by the rabbis. Lighting Shabbat candles was instituted by the rabbis. And the festivals of Hanukkah and Purim were instituted by rabbinical institution. So indeed, a major part of what we call Judaism is really the Rabbanan, from the rabbis. And Hashem says that and I'm talking, it's not the rabbis of today, these are halachic geniuses of the times of the Talmud that put these laws, we have to fulfill them just as if they were directed by Hashem, because Hashem gave them to them. They are conduits of God. And you shall observe all that they shall instruct you. This is in the Devarim, this is in the Chumash, in the written Torah, that we have to follow the directives of our sages. Thus the blessing recited before the performance of a mitzvah: blessed are you, Lord, our King, God, King of the universe, who has sanctified us with commandments and commanded us to, is recited over rabbinical mitzvot as well. When you're doing a rabbinical mitzvah, you also say this blessing. So God is the sole commander of the mitzvot, whether it is written or alluded in the Torah, or instituted by human beings to whom he imparted the authority to interpret and safeguard his laws and legislate Jewish life. So what these teachings of the Rebbe is telling us is that in reality, being a Jew is a person that has a very big responsibility in the world. We have a very big responsibility. We're light lampers. We're the light of the world. When we're keeping the mitzvot, when we are fulfilling Hashem's will, when we're fulfilling His desires, we are we're brightening the road for other people to follow in other ways, in sanctifying life, in the way they deal with business, in the way they keep their homes, in the way they deal with their employees, or the employee deals with the employer. All these laws that are legal, they're logical, are what illuminate the world. This is what brings light to the world. This is what makes people decent. Hashem wants a decent society, wants people to live in a decent way, decency, derech eretz. And then there are laws which are supra-rational that really come to play a different role, although the other ones also are viewed as, also have no logic. They're even more, they're also hukim in their essence, but at our level we can see why. The other ones that we can't even understand, we can't even come to comprehend, these ones are the ones that make that connection to God so real. Because, you know, sometimes you keep Mishpatim because we are humanitarian, you know, a humanitarian. You want to be a humanitarian person. You want to be a decent person. But really, you want to be. You're not really doing them because this is what Hashem wants you to be. You're doing because you believe, you think that people have to act in a certain way. There's a certain legal code, and we have to abide by it. And you want to do the right thing. But this is a little into you. It's about you. But when you connect to the supra-rational laws, it's not about you. It's not about you. It's really you're jumping up and you're saying, okay, I have no idea why I have to do this. I do not understand why I cannot have my cappuccino after having a piece of chicken. But you know what, Hashem? I want to do your will. I really want to do your will. So we need to have both aspects of the mitzvot. We have to have that in order to be able to get out of ourselves and to really transcend and connect to the one. So I wish you a blessed week. I hope that these classes give you clarity in the way in which we should view being a Jew, and the big gift that it is that Hashem gives us our Torah and our mitzvot, give a little bit of understanding. I hope it inspires you to keep a little more, to always live a little higher of your ground, and to always aspire to connect more and more to Hashem, to be able to live a beautiful, fulfilled life in this world, completing the mission for which you were created. So I wish you a blessed week, and remember, live a little higher. Thank you.